coming through when the growth look good on you. Best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
What's going on, people, man? SG, we're back in the building. Hope everybody is well. Hope everyone's blessed, man. Hope everyone is blessed. You guys can see the title. You saw the thumbnail, see the caption, all of that kind of good stuff. Why are we here, man? Why are we here, man? Like, recently, we've seen quite a lot of conversations, and by the way, this isn't even just Liverpool, of course, Liverpool fans. So I'm gonna kind of center it more towards like Liverpool players and things like that. But this is like a worldwide thing. Yeah, I've seen this everywhere in a lot of fan bases: Arsenal, Chelsea, United, Liverpool, West Ham, even all fan bases of all clubs around the world. This international versus club football kind of beef battle in so many different ways, and there's so many different contexts, to it. And to be honest, I couldn't cover all of them, anyway. Even if I tried, to be honest with you, I could have got a panel of 10 people, and we'd probably get complete different answers, branches into like so many different stratospheres, so many different ways that this conversation can kind of go. But the way I was like, kind of looking at it is that, everybody looks at, either club football or international football separately, but then we try to join them together, when it kind of suits our argument, right? So, you guys, you can see it on the screen right now. Of course, Van Dijk, for Holland, and for Liverpool last season, there's been a lot of talk about Virgil van Dijk, for example, in terms of him as a leader. Him as a captain, for the Netherlands, him as a captain for Liverpool. I myself have spoken, about that captaincy, and in terms of how I kind of see him. He is the captain of Liverpool. He is the captain of Holland, as I mentioned. But is he kind of like my type of captain? I don't know. What I mean? We've all got preferences, right? And that's fine in itself, by the way. We've all got preferences. Ultimately, you can't really change the fact is that he is the captain, at the end of the day. But we've all got preferences in terms of how you would want the captain of your team to be able to lead the team. So whether that is, you want a captain in your team who can, lead the team by the way that they play. If you want a captain in the team who's always loud, gets the boys going, motivational speaker kind of thing. And Virgil, I feel like with someone like him anyway, I feel like he kind of exhibits a little bit of both. You know what I mean? He's got both elements, to be honest, in his kind of arsenal, but at the same time, it's almost like a jack of all trades. He's not really a master of either. At times he is a master of someone who leads by example, in terms of the way that he does play. But does that then does that then help the team, so to speak? But obviously it would do if Virgil van Dijk is playing well, then usually the team would, inevitably play well. But when we're just talking about like the fundamentals of just being a captain, sometimes when I watch him, at times, it's almost like it's difficult because you're a centre back, right? So obviously people are gonna, they throw up the stats, how many duels he's won in games, and he's got 100% duel success rate and stuff like that. And by the way, it's not his fault. You know what I mean? It's just how the way that the game is kind of looked at nowadays. But obviously, it's difficult. It's not like you're a midfielder or a striker where you affect the game in that kind of way, like a Gerrard, for example. Like, he was able to affect the game in terms of helping us to win games, single-handedly, scoring goals, all these kind of, putting in really dominant midfield performances. And again, I'm not saying that Virgil van Dijk has not done that. He has put in, we knew, during that, 18, 19, 19, 20, that kind of period, he was just immortal in terms of the way that he was defending and stuff like that. And, he kind of epitomized what Liverpool's defense were kind of all about, back them times. But would I have called him a leader? I don't know, man. It's weird with him. But again, when we're talking about the international versus the club kind of thing, obviously we know of all of the Dutch kind of players from the past and that the way that they've spoken about Virgil van Dijk, the way that they speak about him in terms of his leadership. Never talk about his actual playing ability because they're not dumb. Well, let me not even say Don't quote me verbatim for that, because I don't know if maybe there has been some who've said, "Oh, he's not a good player." I don't know, but I've not personally seen that. It's always been about his leadership when the chips are down, and this is why we had that conversation before about oh, when they win, they don't say nothing. You wouldn't know. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't really make sense to kind of speak on those kind of things, so to speak. And to be honest, them winning isn't going to be isn't always necessarily going to be because he was the great leader. It might just be someone else done a great job. Gakpo played amazingly, or Depay scored an amazing goal, or whatever the case may be. It might not necessarily be down to his leadership qualities. But when you do lose games, and of course by losing games, you're conceding goals, right? And unfortunately, he does play in that defense, it's going to get highlighted a bit more. But when we're looking at that battle between the two, it's like, of course, Liverpool fans, they adore, their players, like, and will back their players, which is always a good thing, right? And they're very loyal to their players. But sometimes it's like, sometimes you can back someone too blindly at times. Do you know what I mean? So you're not even willing to see anything different because you're just backing this player no matter what. And sometimes it's like, having that blind loyalty at times can be really, really great, and sometimes players do need that pick me up. And I'm not saying Virgil, the guy's 33 now, you know what I mean? I don't feel like he needs to be babied in any such way, but sometimes it can just be a bit blind, a bit of, blind loyalty. But look, ultimately, when we're looking at that, his performances for the Netherlands and his performances, for Liverpool, some people always try to find the correlation between the two. I feel like he's been in the last few seasons, or last few years, should I say, he's been okay. He's been okay for the Netherlands. Obviously been a lot better, would I say, for Liverpool in that time. But again, you've got such a massive sample size, to kind of go off. So it's always kind of difficult, with that. And then you've got his Dutch counterpart in, Cody Gakpo. A lot of talk has been about Gakpo, especially in this tournament. A lot of Liverpool fans are saying, oh, Klopp fumbled the bag in terms of positioning, where he should play and, stuff like that. And again, it's trying to almost find the correlation. Now, like with Virgil van Dijk and Cody Gakpo, I think we've got to remember they're playing a team that has a different kind of formation than Liverpool. So when we're talking about someone like a Gakpo, who, by the way, has been pretty decent in this tournament, I believe, scored, Holland's top goal scorer. I think he's the joint top goal scorer in the tournament at this moment in time. He's had some good games. He's had some meaty games. I wouldn't say he's had any bad games. I don't think he's had any necessarily bad games. Did you say meaty or really, really good games? But again, people are always trying to find that correlation. It's always like, oh, but if this player can, perform amazingly for Holland, why can't we get that same kind of player? And I'm always like, how do you expect, unless the two teams, so the international team and the club team, unless they play the exact similar way, like down to a T, and have the same kind of profiles in both teams, I don't understand why people always look at it and straight away it's like, oh yeah, Klopp fumbled the bag and whatnot. Sometimes when we look at these things, like I said, it's that blind loyalty, right? It's that blind, and it's funny because as soon as Klopp has left, the way that people have been speaking about him, I know for a fact, most of you anyway, especially those watching this, you never had this kind of energy. You never ever exhibited this kind of energy whilst Klopp was at the football club. Maybe just because you didn't want to, you don't want to badmouth someone, fair enough. But you know me, guys, I'm a person, I'm always keep the same energy. Keep the same energy all the time. Don't jam, flip-flop and all that kind of stuff. It's like it leaves a taste. It leaves a taste, man. I don't really like all that kind of stuff. But listen, people do it anyway. It is what it is. I can't change that, about people, because that's just their own personality, really showing. But yeah, again, when we're looking at someone like a Cody Gakpo, like I said, he plays in a system that is, in terms of in the attacking sense, is kind of built up for him, in terms of the way that they like to get him isolated and stuff. Now, of course, I understand, because in your head you're thinking, oh, but if he can do that for Holland, which he has done in this tournament, he should be able to come to Liverpool and do the same thing. But what if Liverpool don't want to play that way? What if it's not beneficial for the team that we play that way, to his strengths, so to speak, meaning he's then got to fit in to the club's way of playing in terms of slot, the way he wants to play, or whoever's in charge of the tactics and stuff like that. What if that's not the way that they want to play? Then what happens? Is he shit all of a sudden? But 2 minutes ago, we're calling him a great player. And I feel like, again, it's that club, country, oh, he should be able to do what he's doing. I don't think it always works like that. I really, really don't think it works like that. Another player that we all know, Darwin Núñez. We've spoken about Núñez, God knows how many times in so many different contexts. But again, he's another player that when we look at, and people are always baffled as to why is it when he plays for Uruguay, he looks like he is probably one of the best strikers, in the world. But when he comes to Liverpool and he plays for Liverpool, he looks like, I wouldn't even say one of the worst, because I wouldn't even go that far. He definitely just looks like a very average striker. A striker that, would I say, most teams would just be like, yeah, he's all right. Do you know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't look out of place in a mid-table club. He wouldn't look out of place at like a Crystal Palace, as an example. You just look at him. I would look at him the same way as I'd look at like a Mateta or something like that at club level. But when he's over there for Uruguay, it's like, oh my goodness, this guy is on form. He's doing this again. Different styles of play, and I feel like we're not. For some reason, fans just. And again, I'm relating this to Liverpool. It's almost like we don't seem to understand that. It's almost like we feel like we should be seeing the same thing. And I'm like, maybe in certain aspects, in terms of certain potential, fundamentals and things like that, yeah, I can definitely agree with that, because ultimately you're still the same kind of player. If you're able to make a 5-yard pass for club level, why can't you, things like that? Yes. But in terms of the style of play, in terms of even the runs that he makes in, for Uruguay, the way that he plays on that last shoulder, the way that he does certain things, the movements that he makes, I don't see why you would think that Liverpool would in turn do that. And again, I'm basing this purely off of what we have seen. There's nothing to suggest that Slot won't come in and all of a sudden, he's going to get this player playing with that player. And it may happen. I really don't know. I'd have to wait and see on that one. But I just feel like when we've seen him, of course, for Liverpool, I've just not really rated him. I don't really rate him like that as a player at club level. At international level, I actually do rate him, because I'm like, yo, he actually does the business, for his country. But again, it's that, why do we always feel like there has to be some type of correlation? I think surely, people who have watched both international and club football for a very, very long time, I'm sure that the two are not the same. The pace, the intensity, in these kind of things, it's totally different. It's totally, heck, the Euros should kind of tell you, heck, if you've been watching the Copa America, it should show you these things. Different styles, and obviously it's going to maybe be a little bit difficult as well for some of these, international teams, because even when I look at players like a Núñez or players like a Van Dijk or a Cody Gakpo and stuff like that, when I look at these kind of players, there's one thing I always say is that these guys, right, these kind of players, they play in teams where they're more or less the main guy within their team, especially in Darwin Núñez's case. He's the main striker in the team. I know they got Luis Suarez, but he's on the way. He's almost finishing his career, and Núñez is like the heir apparent, right, to that kind of number 9 slot, and he deserves it from the way that he's been playing recently. When you come to Liverpool, now, I'm not saying those those international teams don't have heritage. Holland do, Uruguay do. They've won World Cups, Euros, whatever. They've got the history and stuff like that. But when you come to club level, and you're not the main guy in the team, again, I ask everybody, why do you think and why do you try to marry the two together? Why? Why do you think that just because you see this person doing whatever they do for international teams, that the second that they come to club football, but why is he not? Bro, they're not the main guy. Darwin Núñez coming here, he's not the main guy. He never will be the main guy as long as, Mo Salah is going to be here. Now, whether you agree, whether you disagree, that's the only fact I can actually say outside of everything, because everything else is just an opinion, right? But we all know that that's the fact. Unless Slot plays in a way which isolates Mo Salah, which then begs the question, then why keep him? Why not just have someone else there so that you can make someone like a Darwin Núñez the focal point, or a Cody Gakpo, the focal point, or even, as we move on to, a Luis Diaz, all of these kind of guys, you can't make everybody the focal point, people. And I feel like this is what we're not understanding. Uruguay can make him the focal point in the team because he is the only good striker. Luis Diaz is the best attacker that they've got in the team. He is the most exciting player that they have in their team. So of course, these kind of players, when they're playing for their country, they can be amazing. Like I said, at Liverpool, it doesn't work like that. For one, you've got all 4 of those in your team anyway. So how can you have a team and this is the bit that always baffles me. How can we look at the team and then we sit here and we say, yeah, but if he was doing this for Colombia, you know, all the jinky majinky stuff and, you know, the skinning man and doing all of this kind of great stuff and chipping, you know, goalkeepers, etc. When he comes to Liverpool, why is he, brother, how can you have that? Then you want Cody Gakpo to also be the man. Then you want Darwin Núñez to also be the man. Diogo Jota to be the man. Guys, remember, you cannot, there is no system that's going to allow for everybody to be the man in their team. There's going to be one, maybe two brothers. In if we're just talking about the attack here, and obviously this is if you play with like a three at minimum, right? It's going to be one or two, and it's usually just really the one guy that everyone looks to and says, that's the guy. The rest of us are going to have to do things in a different kind of way. But that then doesn't excuse for some of the stuff that we obviously saw last season with some of these players missing chances, you know, messing up attacks and things like that. We can't excuse any of that. That's got nothing to do, you know, with anything, to be honest with you. That's just them as individuals. Again, things may change. We can only go off the evidence that we have seen thus far. I can't read into the future, and I'm not even going to try and do that. I see it's a pointless exercise. But when we are talking about, you know, some of these players, I just feel like too many people are asking for unrealistic things at times. I'm just like you're asking for man to be this guy, that guy, and, you know, Trent Alexander-Arnold, oh, he should be doing this, you know, he should be playing for Gareth Southgate. I'm not even disagreeing even with, you know, with that kind of point. But again, if Gareth Southgate, like him or lump him, he's into the semi-finals of the Euros, so you got to give man some type of credit somewhere. You know, I think he's had 3 semi-finals so far, you know, as an England manager, something that give or take, I can't remember any England manager to have really done that in terms of since they've been managing England, to have been in 3 semi-finals. But cool. When you look at it on the face of it, he has his team, he has his style, he has his tactics. We don't like it. Yes, I know that. Let's skip over that. The reality is he's got his way of playing. Trent does not really fit into that. And when he has played, in terms of, if we looked at all the games that Trent Alexander-Arnold has played for England, would I say that he's impressed? Probably not. Do you know what I mean? Like, not enough for me to be kicking and screaming that he should play. Now, like I said, I'm not disagreeing if you feel like he should play based on his qualities. I'm definitely not trying to say that. What I am saying, though, is that when we're looking at on the face of it, the reason why some players will excel in one form as opposed to the other, and with Trent, it's kind of like roles reverse, as opposed to the Gakpos, the Diaz's, and the Núñez, you know, kind of players who excel for international but don't really excel here. Guys, what's the one thing, you know, that's always constant in this, is that you build something around this one player. So at Liverpool, when Trent Alexander-Arnold is at Liverpool, phases of the game, or phases of our play, should I say, are built around him. Last season, he inverts, built around, in terms of the build-up play. I'm not saying the whole game, the build-up play, built around him. So he's going to look better. At England, they've got too many players for that. They've got the Kanes, the Fodens, the Sakas, you know, they've got all of these players, the Jude Bellinghams, the Declan Rices, like, they've got all of these kind of players. Liverpool don't have those set of players, you know, so to speak. We don't have a world-class number 9. I'm trying to say, like, we don't have those kind of midfielders in a Jude Bellingham and a Declan Rice. I feel like those two are better than the midfielders that we've got. So straight away, they've got a better midfield and they've got a better striker. So obviously, you need to work with what you've got. Yeah, and that's what Liverpool have done with Trent Alexander-Arnold since he came into the team. They've been able to build it around him to allow him to flourish. As soon as you come out of that, as we've seen, by the way, with like a Phil Foden and stuff like that, we've seen performances ain't really been, you know what I mean, matching up. The Phil Foden we see for Manchester City is not the same Phil Foden we see. Why? Because they're not building it around him. They're not playing through him. He's having to do a different type of role. And this is what I'm saying, people, is that I feel like at times we are asking for a bit too much in some of these kind of situations. And for me, I'm just like, it doesn't need to be this battle. There doesn't need to be this player FC battle that we're seeing quite a lot, you know, with everybody, you know, oh, but he's doing job for Holland, so as soon as he does job for he has to be my left winger next season. No, he doesn't. He actually doesn't have to be the left winger. He really doesn't. He may not even fit into what, you know, Slot's trying to do. Again, like I said, we don't know until Slot, you know, comes in and we see what that looks like. We'd have to wait and see. He could come in. It's literally 50-50 at this current moment in time. In terms of potentially the way that Slot wants to play, it's 50-50 in my personal opinion. I can't it'll be impossible for you to say, yeah, it's more likely he's gonna do well, or it's more likely he's gonna fail. I wouldn't do that. Did you get what I'm trying to say? It is literally a 50-50 type of situation. But for some reason, we don't seem to understand that. We literally keep trying to correlate the two and try to understand. Ultimately, guys, we need to understand that Liverpool, with the profile of players that they've got at this current moment in time, we're not going to necessarily see the best from every single person. It's just not going to be possible. Gini Wijnaldum, even when Liverpool were a really, really good team, you know, a few seasons ago, Gini Wijnaldum wasn't even the same player as he was for Holland. Two different players, literally two different players. You had one guy who just sat in the midfield, didn't do anything else. Then you had for Holland, this guy is playing support striker, behind the striker, you know, you roaming around, scoring goals. Like that was a completely different player than the one that we saw at Liverpool. Why? Because again, what the system and what the manager is asking of you in both setups is always going to be different. As long as it's beneficial to the team, as long as it helps the team, that's all that matters. That is all that matters. So again, the Cody Gakpos, the Luis Diaz, the Darwin Núñez's, the Van Dijks, the Trents, all of these guys, just because you may see some of them doing really well either at club level or at international level, it doesn't mean you're going to see it at both. It's going to be very rare. It's very rare that you usually see these kind of things patterning up at both. So I could have thrown in Szoboszlai as well. Again, another player. You know, we see the performances that he's putting in for Hungary over the last 2 years, for example. He's now captain, you know, of the team. You know, all this kind of good stuff comes to Liverpool in his first season anyway. Doesn't really look the same player. Why? The role that's been asked of him. The role that's been asked of him. So when people are like, oh, but if you just get him to do that, even if you got him to do whatever he's doing at Hungary, how do we know that that's going to even work for the team? How do we know? At Hungary, he is the best player. At Liverpool, he ain't even close. So then what happens? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, it's these kind of questions I feel like, you know, we should be asking. And again, it's these kind of things that I'm just like, guys, like, let it live. Let it live with all of this, man. Like, we don't need to have this club versus international battle all the time, man. Let the players, whatever they're doing for international, you shouldn't even, like, why do you care? Why do you? Most of us don't even come from hardly any of these countries anyway. But even if you did, why do you care? Why do you care? Let them do what they're doing for international. Because guess what? When it comes back to Liverpool and when they're playing for Liverpool, I want you to do whatever's best for the team. So if that is, let's just say as an example, right? Darwin Núñez scoring all these goals at Uruguay and stuff like that helps them to win the Copa America, whatever. Yeah, he does all of that stuff. If he comes back to Liverpool, knowing what he's been like for Liverpool and can't really replicate that, but turns into this assist monster, for example, great, do that. Do that. Do you get what I'm trying to say? That's not a problem, because if it works for the team, then it works for the team. Cody Gakpo, we've seen this guy missing more often than not for Liverpool. Are we going to blame that just because on positional sense? Come on, man. Like, it's a lame argument, man. It's a real lame argument, and that's my issue with this whole thing. But again, let me know what you guys think in terms of this club versus international kind of battle that, you know, everybody seems to, you know, want to be doing and stuff like that. Let me know. Maybe you feel like I'm wide off the mark. Maybe, I don't know. Just let me know, of course, what you guys think in the comment section. Make sure you smash a like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We out.